Hey, good morning. This is Tyler Franklin with Axis Seed. Hope you all are doing well. I'm in a cornfield where the farmer is harvesting in Caroline County, Virginia. Talked with the farmer yesterday, asked him how yields were doing on this particular tract, and he was a little disappointed with how things were turning out. So I got out here early this morning to figure out what exactly was going on with the farm. I thought originally that this area had enough moisture for good pollination. I knew it got dry afterwards. The first thing I wanted to look for out here was how well the corn actually pollinated, and then how much it aborted after pollination. And I wanted to show you what's going on out here through a video so you can actually get in your field if yields aren't exactly what you expected them to be, and so you can decipher what's really going on. But we're on the split here between two different Axis hybrids. They're both planted the same day. The key point I want you to understand is that this is an earlier maturity that pollinated probably 4 or 5 days before the hybrid on the right here. So this pollinated a little bit earlier than the hybrid on the right. The hybrid on the right, I pulled back 100 ears and I counted 25 ears that pollinated poorly, which is going to be a significant yield decrease. So this is what a typical ear looks like out here. You can see they're not huge, but that would be a solid 120, 130 bushel ear if every ear looked like this. This ear pollinated good, but you can see the small kernels up here. When this plant was going through dry weather stress after pollination, the kernel shrunk and aborted. You can kind of see how it tapers off here at the top on this here too. This is stress after pollination. That's zipper ear. So one side has normal kernels, this side doesn't. That's heat stress during pollination. This is stress after pollination. There's your zipper ear. That's stress during pollination. This is what I counted as a poorly pollinated ear. But it gets worse. There's a poorly pollinated ear. That's very evident as a poorly pollinated ear. This right here is actually stink bug damage. If you ever see it curled like that, that's stink bug. The stink bug actually stung the ear right there. It's very evident because you can see exactly where he punctured the ear. That occurs right at silking. The insect stings it. I found more stink bug damage this year than I've ever seen in the whole state of Virginia and North Carolina, but it's only about 3 or 4% here. The big issue is poor pollination. This ear did not pollinate properly compared to one that did. That's a telltale classic poor pollination sign right there. There's another one. So this is a nice normal ear, but it's a skip. So this plant had a little bit more moisture, was not stressed as much during pollination, so the plant was able to pollinate properly and fill out, and it did not stress as much because it had more room to work with, where the hybrid right next to it had a little bit more competition and aborted kernels after pollination. So the story here is we got a couple things going on, and it's all related to dry weather stress, but we had poor pollination like this ear compared to a normal one. And then we had stress after pollination, which caused the kernels at the tip of the ear to abort. See, these small little kernels at the tip aborted. So that's poor pollination, along with this one. And this is why this farmer is seeing lower yields. Poor pollination and stress after pollination. Another thing I want to show you So if you see this in your field, you had pollination issues. Another thing I wanted to show you, and I want to talk about spreading your risk, because if the corn doesn't pollinate, there's no kernels to fill. Even I've seen the scenario where the corn doesn't pollinate because of stress, and then a week later you get rain and it's perfect the rest of the season. If that corn had pollinated, you'd have had a good crop. Because it didn't pollinate it, there was no kernels to fill. So remember I talked to you when I first got out here, this corn on the other side, on the other row, is a little bit earlier maturity. It pollinated about 4 or 5 days sooner than this hybrid over here. We had 25% ears that were poorly pollinated. Because this hybrid pollinated earlier and it wasn't quite as stressed during pollination, we only have 5% poorly pollinated ears, which means that there were more kernels on this hybrid to fill once it did start raining. So it still had some stress, but not nearly as much. The difference in 25% poorly pollinated ears and 5% could be as much as 40, 50 bushels. So this hybrid that pollinated earlier will actually out yield the other hybrid that pollinated later. So here you can still see effects of late season stress. So it pollinated good, and these kernels up here pollinated, but then it got dry and it aborted. The takeaway home from this video is what to actually look for in your fields if you're worried about what's going on and the yields aren't what you expected them to be. But also a key point is to spread your risk with different pollination windows. You want to spread that pollination window out so all your corn is not pollinating at the same time. Had this farmer plant all of this one hybrid, it was all pollinating at a bad time, 25% of his corn would have pollinated poorly. Because he spread his pollination window out with a different hybrid, means half of his crop in this farm did pollinate good. If you have any questions or any tips on how to avoid things like this in the future, let me know. Just because you're planting a 110-day corn from one company and a 115-day corn from another company doesn't mean you're spreading your pollination window. You've got to look at GDUs to silking and tasseling. That's what's really important, more than just the maturity. But if I can help you in any way, let me know. Tyler Franklin, my number is 804-445-4333, or you can check us out at tidewaterseed.com. Take care.